FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook, and right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if their first $5 bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to join today. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, guys, this game on Sunday features the 12-1 Kansas City Chiefs against the 3-10 Cleveland Browns. The line, however, is only 4.5 in favor of the Chiefs, and we'll talk about their inability to cover the spread in a little bit.
Hasn't if that you just dropped dramatically? Wasn't it like 6.5? Did it open at 6? 6.5?
Started at 6. It's down to 4.5.
Yeah, because the Chiefs have been terrible against the spread.
It's one of my stats coming up in the show. Don't worry. Yeah. We got some deep dive in there.
So have the Browns, by the way. They've been bad against the spread, too.
When you look at the records, if you take the names off the teams, it's a 12-1 team that's the #1 seed in the AFC versus a 3-10 team that is eliminated from playoff contention. I've been calling this the NFL can make no sense. The Browns somehow win this game. Bull, you're saying you're not buying that, but I want to start with Darren. Darren, could this be the NFL makes absolutely no sense game of the season where the Browns somehow find a way to upset Kansas City?
Well, I'll be honest, the Browns could win this game, and for all the flack that people want to give me about my Deshaun Watson take, which is fine, I'm here for it. They have a better chance to win this game against the Chiefs with Jameis Winston than they would have had with Deshaun Watson. One of the reasons is defensively, Jameis Winston is going to, if he throws the ball down, he's going to press against this defense. They've had problems with crossing patterns. They've had problems, with quarterbacks with big arms. And one of the things that you all have seen, Jameis is not afraid to throw the football. Now, the flip side is he's not afraid to get the ball away. Talking to Justin Reed this week in the locker room, he's hoping, to keep Jameis in the game because they feel like the opportunity will be there to get an interception. And if you're Trent McDuffie, you want to get your first interception against someone like Jameis who'll give them the football. But the other thing is, he will push the defense to the limit. And what that does is, for the offense, it's going to put pressure on them to put points on the board, because if Jameis can get started early and can get them into the end zone, that's going to force the offense to put points on the board and it's been somewhat challenged in the last few weeks with Kansas City and putting points on the board. So they can win this game. I don't expect them to, because the Chiefs have more at stake in trying to get the #1 seed and, of course, the bye. So, but we'll see how.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have obviously all their games have been close. That's why most of their games have been close, and that's why their record against the spread is not good, because especially early in the season, there was a lot of games they were a big favorite and they didn't cover. I'm sure they don't care about that. Why would they? That doesn't matter. But if you're thinking about betting on the game, it matters. And so
I learned a couple years ago, always just take them on the money line. I don't care if they can be minus 1,000. I'm not betting 1 ounce.
You never lay in a point.
Well, the best I'll do is I'll give the Chiefs plus points, because if they lose, it won't be by much.
That's true.
But which they don't lose that often.
Yeah.
But if I'm a bet on Kansas City, I'm giving them points, or I'm betting the money line.
Obviously, I expect the Chiefs to win the game as well, but it's not. First of all, it's the NFL, and the Browns, even though their record is 3-10, they're not that awful. They're not 3-10 bad. They're bad, but I don't think they're 3-10 bad, especially with Jameis. So it's not this is not an all-time upset if the Browns win. They're at home, and they're only, as I said, only a 4-point dog. I think it did start a little higher. I would have guessed it would be a 6 or 7 point spread. Too. But still, the Ravens are a 17-point favorite this week against the Giants. I mean,
and I think one of the other reasons why is there's still a question mark at the left tackle position. I mean, and if you're Myles Garrett and you see Wanya Morris. You watch what I say, because they might be watching. But if you're Wanya Morris and you're there, you're going up against Myles Garrett. They're going to be licking their chops the entire game, and they're going to overload on that side of the field, just like the Raiders and the other team
Panthers,
did.
Right?
Yeah, and barbecue chicken. So.
I look at it like this: if you Kansas City, this is a scary game, because it's the Browns. They're 3-10, and as you pointed out, they got Jameis Winston at home. It's a little bit of an uphill battle to ask the Browns to go on the road and really upset people.
Not home. It's a home game. I'm pointing to,
I see what you're saying. On the road, they struggled against the Steelers.
Right.
He threw for a bunch of yards, but couldn't get the ball in the end zone against the Saints. But if you take a look what they're able to do at home it's a little bit of a different story. You got wins against the Ravens. You got wins against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So those are two very good teams that are going to make the playoffs. And if you are the San Francisco, or you are the, if you're the Chiefs, you don't want to get the San Francisco 49ers treatment like the Browns did last year. They had P.J. Walker start that game, and for some reason, you couldn't move the ball. You couldn't do what you wanted to. It was a sloppy game. Browns ended up winning. If you got a Jameis Winston that can give you 3 touchdowns, but he can also give you 3 interceptions. He's a little more stable at home. I think that he'll come back after this game and bounce back from what he did against the Steelers. And I think that he'll be a much better, thrower of the football downfield, and he won't give up that many turnovers. I still think he throws interception. And I do not have the Browns winning this football game, but I do have the Browns in a close game all the way up to the fourth quarter, saying neck and neck with the Chiefs.
Can the Browns win? Yeah, Browns can win the game if they win the turnover battle, which they don't ever do. I think that would be crucial in this game. I didn't realize Kansas City was also negative on turnovers.
Oh, yeah.
So I knew, I mean, these are two teams that love to turn the ball over. So whoever wins that, I think is going to go a long way in determining who wins the game. And, we say this about the NBA all the time, that teams just don't play that hard. Teams get bored. They play hard for 5 or 6 minutes, just enough to hit the gas and go and win the game. You see Kansas City more than I do. It sort of feels like they just get bored.
I just said that. I said that too in the car on the way over here.
Well, here's the thing, and this is key. I'll get to that point in just a second. But as it relates to the Browns winning, one of the things that Kansas City will give up, they'll give up, as you all have talked about, the 20 to the 20. The problem is going to be teams can't score with from the 20 to the red zone. The Chiefs' red zone defense has been outstanding. Like, they'll give up a big play, but if the receiver doesn't score, the Chiefs' defense will hold them to a field goal. But back to your point, I tell people, as a 2-time defending Super Bowl champion, teams get up for you every week. So it is a mental drain. And sometimes I have to take myself back. People like, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I grew up in Kansas City, but I grew up a Cowboys and Niners fan because I'm in church while Kansas City is playing. So I didn't watch a lot of Chiefs football growing up. But when you are the Chiefs and you get everybody's best week in and week out from Baltimore to Cincinnati to even the Carolina Panthers, you have to play at a high level every single week, and that takes a lot mentally as well as physically. Where other teams, you look at last night's game, 12-6 between the Rams and the 49ers. Now, granted, it had playoff implications, but to the extent to where people's game rise, when you're coming in town, it's a totally different thing. And the fact that the Chiefs have been on this literally since Patrick had started playing, where they want to take them out, they want to be the team that beats them and stuff like that. Yeah, that's a hard road for Kansas City to have to play each and every week at a high level. So that's true. The fact that they're 12-1 and winning it in the manner in which they have says a lot about the coaching staff and the players themselves as well.
And the Chiefs, you look at Mahomes' numbers at this point, just statistically, he's not really off from what he did last year, which. Obviously, the last 2 years, traditional statistics, his numbers are down from what they were 3 and 4 and 5 years ago. Part of that is just the NFL that quarterback numbers have overall dropped the last couple of years. But, a lot was made of his interceptions earlier. I know the last 3 games he hasn't thrown a pick. He's thrown 11 picks, or is it 10?
I didn't look at the stats.
He has 11 picks.
Excuse me.
20 touchdowns, 11 picks.
Right, 11 picks. Last year he threw 14, so he's basically on the same pace as last year. We'll see how it ends up. Some people have said he's having a terrible year. He's not the best. He hasn't been the best quarterback in the NFL this year, clearly. Right. But he's not having a terrible year, right? I mean, I'm not watching him every week.
No, it's not terrible. I mean, you got to remember, he lost essentially his number 1 wide receiver the first play in preseason. He took out and he literally took out his second wide receiver against the Chargers. I think that might have been week 2 or week 3 of the season. And then of course you lose an Isaiah Pacheco earlier in the season as well before getting him back. And now Hollywood Brown is expected to come back within the next couple of weeks. So, he played most of this season without 3 of his top players.
Right.
You bring in Kareem Hunt, you bring in Juju Smith-Schuster, you end up bringing in DeAndre Hopkins, and the fact that again, the interceptions have been a problem early on, but I still go back 12-1, and to be able to just, plug in players and still get to where you're at. It says a lot about the players and from ownership on down and the buy-in that these players are, where they're at 12-1, and coaching has a lot to do with it.
From your vantage point, we talked about this before. From your vantage point, before the preseason, you had the Browns and the Chiefs in the AFC Championship.
I did.
I think Shannon Sharp had some of the same type
No, he had the
prediction.
same.
He had the same prediction, right?
Yeah.
So, Chiefs end up 12-1. From the outside looking in from a national perspective, from where your vantage point is, Chiefs held up their end of the bargain. What do you think derailed the Browns? And did you expect them to be 3-10?
I didn't expect them to be 3-10. I also didn't expect them to not play not play their players in the preseason. I always thought that was, from my vantage point, that was a no-no. When you didn't play them at all in the preseason, then your first game out is against the Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons, their defense. I didn't think that was a good recipe. I thought that was a recipe for disaster. Now, you all being in Cleveland, you all see them much more. I do watch the show every day, so I got a chance to hear you all's thoughts or whatever throughout, during the preseason and the training camp and stuff. I always thought that them not playing was going to hinder their start. Thinking about Kansas City, Andy's old school, takes them up to St. Joe in the college environment, get all that noise out the way, and he runs a tough practice. Now I've seen it year in and year out, but they run a tight ship up there. But he gets them ready. And the thing is, they lost Hollywood Brown, first play of the preseason. Plug the next person in, keep everything moving. Injuries are going to happen. And so they just take it and they take it with a grain of salt, plug the next person in, and they keep it moving. So, again, not going to, hamper on Cleveland's coaching staff, whatever. They made the decision that they made. Just from my vantage point, I always thought that they did not run as tight or as tough of a training camp. And, of course, for me, not playing in preseason kind of, because the Chiefs, they play their starters, every game in the preseason years on. So.
Under the radar storyline in this game, this very likely could be Travis Kelce's last game in Cleveland. Right? How many more years are you going to play?
Right.
They're not going to play next year.
Oh, and happy birthday to Taylor Swift. I better get that out.
Is today her birthday?
Today's her birthday.
Wow. How old is she?
Swifties will be
34.
upset at me if I don't say happy birthday.
She's 34? And
35.
Travis is what? So she's 35?
She's 35. Travis is 34.
Will they get married?
I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that.